All right, shifting gears to the WNBA here, because the collective bargaining agreement between the W and its Players Association, it is set to expire this week on January the 9th. Now, Napheesa Collier, she spoke on the current situation from her team's Unrivaled game last night. Take a listen.
I think you've just heard a lot of chatter about, what we're asking for is not sustainable for the business. And being on this side with Unrivaled, I know what it takes to run a sustainable business. So I think if they can't find a model that makes that happen, they need to put people in place who can, because we've proven that it is possible. There is a way, and we're thriving in that. And so I do think a deal is going to get done, but we're standing firm in what we believe in. We're not going to back down, and we can't take less. The sport has just grown too much. It would be a disservice to the people who came before us, to the work that we put in, to take less than what we're owed.
So here's what just went down that has the entire WNBA world losing their minds. Napheesa Collier, who's supposed to be the VP fighting for WNBA players, just torched the entire league from within. While she's literally supposed to be negotiating better deals for players, she's simultaneously running her own competing basketball league and trying to steal those same players. The level of betrayal here is off the charts, and the explosion that followed has left everyone picking up pieces.
Hear what Napheesa is saying, absolutely, and the reality is the deadline is just a couple of days away. So she's saying that she sees a deal getting done, but also that they are not going to take less. Where do things stand now with those negotiations?
Yeah, Malika, both sides are still very far apart in these negotiations. Rev sharing is still at the centerpiece of these conversations, as they have been for the past couple months. What would a revenue share system look like? What would be considered revenue, and how would you account for expenses? Those are all things that are being discussed right now. Now, last week, Malika, multiple sources familiar with these negotiations told ESPN that the WNBA is projecting that a proposal by the Players Association that has 30% gross revenue and a salary cap around $10.5 million would result in $700 million in losses for the W. That is a very big number.
Here's what I need to know from you. Can someone actually represent a league's players while building that league's replacement? Sound off in the comments, because this drama is wilder than anything you'd see on reality TV.
The co-founders of Unrivaled, Stewart and Collier, are, of course, VPs on the committee. The very committee that voted to authorize a strike against WNBA and NBA owners over the CBA. The very committee that authorized the proposal that would lose the WNBA $700 million? The very committee that is turning down salary increases of about 9 times the amount of money you're making?
Buckle up, because we need to dive deep into what might be the most shocking conflict of interest in sports history. Napheesa Collier just showed the world exactly how to destroy your credibility in record time. This woman holds the VP position for the WNBA Players Union, meaning her job is literally to advocate for players within the existing league structure. But plot twist, she's also co-running Unrivaled, which directly competes with the WNBA. Imagine being the manager at Starbucks, while secretly opening your own coffee shop next door, and then publicly announcing that Starbucks makes terrible coffee. The level of professional misconduct here would be laughable if it weren't so devastating for everyone involved. But Collier didn't stop there. During actual CBA negotiations, she went completely nuclear on her own league. She stood in front of everyone and basically declared that the WNBA's entire business approach was doomed to fail. Her exact words were something like, if the WNBA can't figure out a working financial model, they need to find people who can make it work. Hold up. You're literally the VP of their players union and you're publicly destroying their reputation? That's not tough negotiation tactics. That's straight up corporate warfare disguised as player advocacy. Then comes the part that made my jaw hit the floor. Collier had the unbelievable audacity to hold up Unrivaled as the perfect example of how basketball leagues should operate. She claimed her league had cracked the code on sustainable business practices and was absolutely crushing it financially. She even declared that the union wouldn't compromise because they had proof it could be done better. Crushing it? Really? Let's examine what crushing it actually looks like, because Collier apparently needs some basic business education. Unrivaled exists entirely because private investors are pumping money into it. That's not profitability, That's rich people gambling on your potential future success. Claiming your league is financially sound because investors gave you money is like saying you're wealthy because someone loaned you their credit card. The reality check here is absolutely brutal. Smart fans immediately called out this nonsense, pointing out that getting investor funding isn't the same as generating actual revenue. Investors are basically saying, we think you might eventually make money, so here's cash to keep you alive long enough to try. That's the complete opposite of the sustainable success story Collier was selling. TNT is reportedly hemorrhaging money on their Unrivaled coverage. The moment those advertising partnerships disappear, and TNT decides this experiment isn't worth the losses, Unrivaled vanishes faster than your motivation to work out after New Year's. But here's the detail that absolutely sent me over the edge. During Unrivaled's own season, Collier scheduled surgery that made her miss games in her own league. Read that again. The co-founder of this supposedly revolutionary basketball organization chose to have medical procedures during her league's season instead of timing it around the WNBA off-season. If that doesn't scream I don't actually believe my own product is important, nothing does. Your actions reveal your true priorities, and her actions are shouting that even she thinks the WNBA matters more than Unrivaled.
Ankle surgery or whatever it was. I don't get it. This is in January. You got hurt. Makes no sense. Makes no sense whatsoever. That, in my opinion, that shows a little bit of lack of interest in your own business, I guess. Especially in light of the fact that Unrivaled doesn't have any play.
Let's break down the laughably obvious differences between these operations. Unrivaled runs 3-on-3 games with tiny rosters in a single location using one small venue. Compare that to when Caitlin Clark takes the court for the WNBA, and suddenly you've got massive NBA arenas packed with 20,000 screaming fans. The scale difference is so dramatic, it's almost embarrassing. Collier is running what someone perfectly described as a basketball league that looks like it was filmed in someone's backyard, then having the nerve to lecture the WNBA about following her business model. One fan asked the most important question nobody wants to answer. How many of those Unrivaled tickets are actually being sold versus given away? Because when you're a startup desperately trying to create buzz, you're definitely flooding the market with free tickets to fill seats. That's not real attendance. That's manufactured excitement that disappears the moment you stop giving stuff away for free. The timeline here makes this even more ridiculous. Unrivaled is barely into its second season. Someone absolutely destroyed Collier's argument by pointing out that you can't possibly know if a business model is sustainable when you've been operating for approximately 5 minutes. It's like a kindergartner trying to give life advice to their parents. You've existed for no time at all, maybe hold off on the expert opinions about how everyone else should run their lives. Another fan perfectly summarized the absurdity, calling it a 2-year 3-on-3 pop-up league, and suggesting Collier come back after Unrivaled survives 3 decades like the WNBA has. The WNBA has spent years building infrastructure, securing television contracts, developing fan loyalty, and establishing legitimate business partnerships. Collier thinks her little experiment that's barely old enough to walk should be everyone's blueprint for success. The disconnect from reality is genuinely staggering.
You have the union saying, no, our proposed model would still result in the W being a profitable business. So just on that alone, we can see how far apart these two sides are. And now as that January 9th deadline comes on Friday, there are a couple different things that we could see happen. One, a deal get done, as Napheesa Collier said she's confident can happen. I'm being told that is less likely. So if that's not going to happen, we can see another extension be agreed upon, as it has happened a couple other times during these negotiations. The current agreement could just run out, but they could continue to negotiate in good faith.
Meanwhile, there's this small detail called Caitlin Clark that completely destroys Collier's entire narrative. While the union VP is busy trying to burn everything down from the inside, Clark has been single-handedly bringing the WNBA back to life. She's filling arenas, bringing television audiences, generating social media buzz, and making the league relevant in ways it hasn't experienced in years. So what does Clark get for carrying the league on her shoulders? A union representative who's publicly declaring that same league financially hopeless while demanding higher salaries. The contradiction here is mind-blowing. Think about Clark's impossible position. She's out there being the face of the WNBA's incredible resurgence, bringing unprecedented attention and actual revenue growth, while her own union leadership is on national television saying the league can't survive. How exactly is that representing her best interest? How is that protecting her career and future earnings potential? It's not. It's Collier using her position to promote her own side business, while throwing Clark and every other star player under the bus. The reaction from fans has been absolutely merciless, and rightfully so. People are calling this strategy completely backwards and describing the union's approach as self-destructive madness. Social media has been roasting Collier with the intensity of a blowtorch, demanding explanations that nobody seems capable of providing. Because the fundamental truth is undeniable: you cannot serve two competing masters. You cannot be the VP of the WNBA Players Union while simultaneously building, funding, and promoting a direct competitor. The conflict of interest is so blindingly obvious that pretending it doesn't exist insults everyone's intelligence. Collier is literally sitting at the negotiating table saying, "Give us more money or we leave," while building the exact place where they would go if they left. That's not collective bargaining. That's extortion with a business plan. Let's address this sustainability nonsense directly. Yes, the WNBA has faced financial challenges throughout its history, but it's supported by the NBA's resources and infrastructure. It has legitimate television contracts with major networks. It operates in multiple major cities with established facilities and staff. It has a fan base that's been steadily growing, especially with new superstars, bringing fresh energy and attention. Unrivaled has investors who could disappear tomorrow, operates in one location, and follows a business model that's completely unproven beyond rich people gave us startup money. These situations aren't even remotely comparable. One observer brilliantly pointed out that the WNBA could essentially erase Unrivaled from existence if they really wanted to. The WNBA has the resources, institutional backing, and infrastructure to completely dominate any smaller competitor. Collier is playing with dynamite while standing in an ammunition warehouse. The real tragedy here is that legitimate conversations about WNBA player compensation absolutely need to happen. There are valid concerns about salaries, working conditions, and career development opportunity. But Collier has completely destroyed any possibility of productive dialogue by making this about her personal business interests instead of genuine player representation. How can players trust their union leadership when the VP has such obvious ulterior motive? How can the WNBA negotiate honestly with someone actively trying to steal their talent and destroy their business model? They can't, which is exactly why these negotiations collapsed completely. Collier created an impossible situation where she's demanding the WNBA operate like her investor-funded startup, while simultaneously criticizing them for not being profitable enough. The circular logic makes absolutely no sense and hurts everyone involved. The players suffer the most in this mess. Clark and her teammates are stuck in limbo while their union leadership plays corporate games with their careers. Rising stars who have been elevating the league suddenly find themselves caught in an internal war they never asked to join. The attendance numbers tell the entire story. While Clark is packing 20,000-seat arenas, Unrivaled is playing to crowds that would struggle to fill a high school gymnasium. Someone described the atmosphere at Unrivaled games as having funeral vibes compared to the electric energy at WNBA games featuring actual superstars. The difference couldn't be more obvious. Collier's complete misunderstanding of scale is the core problem. She thinks, because Unrivaled can cover basic expenses with investor money while running a tiny operation, the WNBA should be able to do the same while managing a league spanning multiple cities with full rosters playing traditional 5-on-5 basketball at a completely different operational level. It's like comparing a neighborhood lemonade stand to Walmart and insisting Walmart should learn efficiency lessons from the lemonade stand. The comparison is ridiculous on every level. What bothers me most is the complete betrayal of trust. Players elected Collier to represent their interests within the WNBA structure, not to build her own basketball empire, not to use her position as leverage for her side business, but to actually fight for better conditions within the existing system. Instead, she weaponized her role to wage war against the league itself, leaving everyone, especially the superstars who built the WNBA's recent success, dealing with the consequences while she promotes her startup. This sets an incredibly dangerous precedent. Imagine if this became standard practice. Union leaders actively working against their employers while building competing businesses. It would completely destroy any possibility of honest negotiations in professional sports. And for what purpose? So Collier can claim she stood firm against the establishment, so she can point to her failed negotiations as evidence the WNBA is broken, conveniently ignoring that her actions broke it. The entire situation reeks of someone who gained a little bit of power, attracted a lot of investor money, and decided normal rules of professional conduct no longer applied to them. The arrogance of standing up as union VP and declaring war on your own league while your competing startup struggles to fill a small arena is truly remarkable. Here's the bottom line. Collier made a massive gamble and lost even bigger. She bet she could force the WNBA into submission by threatening them with an ultimatum backed by her thriving alternative league. But her written isn't thriving at all. It's surviving on life support provided by investors who could pull funding at any moment. Meanwhile, the WNBA, with superstars like Clark driving unprecedented growth, is actually expanding its audience, filling larger venues and building genuine sustainable momentum. Collier is standing there trying to convince everyone the sky is falling while pointing at a perfectly clear blue sky. The mental gymnastics required to maintain this position must be absolutely exhausting. But at least she's consistently inconsistent in her approach. Napheesa Collier tried to play both sides of the game and ended up serving nobody's interests. Her catastrophic power play left the WNBA in complete chaos and proved that professional integrity matters more than personal leverage. If you believe union leaders should actually represent their leagues instead of sabotaging them for personal gain, hit that like button and subscribe for more raw takes on sports drama that's too insane to believe.